Meanwhile, in Houston, Tim McNabb reporting on ESPN.com that there's tension between Rocket stars Chris Paul and James Harden, quoting a source as saying Chris wants to coach James, and James looks at him like, you can't even beat your man, just shut up and watch me. Now, according to sources, Paul was frustrated by what he perceived as Harden's tendency to ignore details that impact winning. A GM, Daryl Morey, was on Golic and Wingo today and talked about potential tension between his stars.
There's going to be times when they're extremely competitive, extremely focused on, how do we get to that next level? And when we don't, there's going to be frustration. And I'm frustrated. Our top players are frustrated. Mike D'Antoni's frustrated. We want to take the last step and be the champion. And I think it's good that there's tension in the sense that we all want to win.
While it can't happen just because somebody asked, it has to be, a couple parties involved. Has Chris Paul asked to be moved on from the Houston Rockets?
No, he has not.
All right, so Daryl Morey setting the record straight, and we want to get the take from our front office insider, Bobby Marks. Among other things, he also said that the team owner, Fertitta, would want to just open up the checkbook. I mean, there's been a perception that maybe he hasn't spent the kind of money that he wanted, and the Rockets are pushing back very, very hard on that. They want to be the favorites, and he also said he's going to keep his starting five. So what do you make of what you heard this morning?
He's right. He should want to keep his starting five, and I think what we saw, what happened in Golden State with the Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson injury, and although the Lakers acquired Anthony Davis over the weekend, Houston should be the prohibitive favorite in the Western Conference going into the season. When you look at the starting five returns, continuity, a team that's won over 50 games the last 2 years, and just because you kind of stubbed your toe 2 years in a row against Golden State doesn't mean you need to go out and kind of regroup this roster right now.
They're also pushing back against some reports that CP3 isn't happy in Houston, that Chris Paul wants out of Houston. You just heard his response to Mike Golic's question. He said unequivocally, nobody has come to him to say that Chris wants out. But what are their options in terms of his contract?
None. and I say that because when you look at where his contract is structured, he's got 3 years left, $120 million plus. I put that contract right up there with John Wall right now. And although no player in this league is untradeable, if the goal is to try to win a championship and get back to the NBA Finals, you should keep Chris Paul. Can you go out and get draft picks and expiring contracts? Yes. But that Chris Paul contract, based on where he is in age and salary, that's a keeper right now.
I'm not so sure that people have to be best friends anyway to win championships or to be a championship caliber team. But that aside, another thing that Daryl Morey said is we do want to go out. We want to use our mid-level exception, and we want to keep that starting five, but really get a top-notch player to come off the bench and make our rotation stronger. What's the situation there in terms of them being able to do that with these two big names already on the roster?
They're going to have to go some serious bargain shopping right now, and they have the $5.7 million tax mid-level exception, and that exception did not go used last year. It was actually used amongst 4 players. They split it up, but when you look at players that are out there like Seth Curry, Austin Rivers, Wayne Ellington, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, basically players that are going to be still on the board after the big names are not there anymore, and it's going to be kind of a wait-and-see approach. But yeah, they have the $5.7 million tax mid-level, the minimum exception. But remember, the best work of Daryl Morey last year was the buyout market. But that was in January. Can they wait till January for another Austin Rivers or Kenneth Faried? I don't think so.
Okay, and can they wait to wrap things up with Mike D'Antoni? So there's been a lot out there about the fact that these negotiations with him have dragged on, and his contract is up at the end of the season. So put on your front office hat again. How do you handle that situation?
That's the one thing you don't want to open up media day in late September, and it's going to be about the coach, on a lame duck coach, and to be known as team turmoil, especially with a team that has high expectations. And what happens when we get to November and December and that first 5 or 6 game losing streak comes into play? The interesting thing right now is how they're going to be able to fill out that coaching staff. Right, they let go of Jeff Bizdelik, Roy Rogers. There hasn't been a replacement right now, but they need to get this situation resolved. The worst thing is to have that lame duck coach going into the season.
Rockets currently with 8-1 odds to win the NBA championship. Listen, it is a wide open scene, and if the Warriors aren't the Warriors, that's been their kryptonite. So got to do everything they can to contend. Bobby, as always, we appreciate it. Thanks.